Welcome to the OSoSpurs podcast. The summer window is finally over. 4 meaningful first-team ready-now players have joined the squad. And I think it's been a different window to what we're used to experiencing with Tottenham Hotspur. But where does that leave us ahead? We know there's still a couple of spaces in that squad that could do with, should we call them, I don't like the word upgrades, guys, but upgrades to get us into a complete squad state. But I'm pretty happy. But firstly, Stu, how are you, mate?
Very well. Very pleased the window's closed, to be perfectly honest.
Johnny, how are you, my friend? Ali Gold and Expression's best mate. How are you?
Those boys will be avoiding me if they ever see me again. Yeah, I'm good. And if Ali Gold is watching, which he won't be, I'm really sorry for annoying you on the train. Not my proudest moment, but I couldn't resist. I was telling them in class about it today. Don't worry, DJ, it's not going to be a 7-minute soliloquy. I was telling my class about it, and I explained who Ali Gold was. I said, it's basically like, imagine if you bumped into Taylor Swift when you're going to the shops. And I just turned around and bloody Ali Gold is there. Like, it's like, what the hell? Yeah, it was awesome.
I love how you said, can you sign my shirt for my son? And you put it in your pocket. And Deej, how are you, mate? And it's always sunny you're not actually in San Francisco at the moment, are you? You're obviously...
I'm back.
Oh, you are. You're with your parents.
I have my one piece of Tottenham
Oh, yeah.
memorabilia hanging in the side that you can only see when it shows up just me on the thing. So I'm trying to talk long enough so it shows up because it's right there.
Yeah.
But no, I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad the window's over. I'm actually pretty excited about the Colomwani deal. We'll talk a bit about that more when we get into the transfer overviews. But yeah, I think overall a pretty good window. There are obviously things that I wish we would have covered, but all in all, it's hard to complain considering the players we did end up getting through the door.
Well, today you're going to get some different views on Muani. You're going to get 2 guys who know nothing about him and 2 guys who do know stuff about him and have conflicting views on whether he's going to be a needle mover for us or not. And I look forward to discussing that with you. But should we start in reverse order? We've kind of addressed 4 main positions, guys. We went to this window knowing that we needed a big right wing change, and we brought that with Mohamed Kudus. We desperately needed a number 6. We have got that in Paulinho. Then we said we really need a 10 because Maddison's injury, is such a dramatic impact on the team. Whether you rate him as a footballer or not, that's down to you. But a number 10 is an extremely important role in modern football going into a season. And then we said, well, there's rumours of a Solanke injury. I'm not sure if Richarlison's going to stay fit. We really need another striker, expecting some kind of Fraser Campbell-style loan. But we went to PSG and said, we'll have him, please. Tried to make it with an option or an obligation, but it sounds like PSG didn't want to do that. Johnny, out of all these, are you content with the window? And out of the 4, which one are you most looking forward to seeing after the international break?
I honestly think that in my opinion, when you look at the start of the summer and you've got the stretch ahead of you, and we had plenty of discussions in the past about like what's realistic. And, I'm pretty sure the phrase, you can't do it all in one window has definitely been bandied around a fair bit between us. And I just think like when you look on balance, and of course there's going to be areas which you would be a bit concerned about, if you get an injury here or there, and where there's definitely scope to improve. And, everyone is talking about the left wing and the left centre back as the obvious examples. I genuinely think that the way you've just described it there, Jim, it's definitely been overall, in my opinion, it's been a really good, really positive window, because I think it's exactly what you've just said. Like where we are strengthening is our players that, you can say can go straight into the starting 11, which hasn't usually been the way, certainly not on those kind of numbers. And I think also like the level of like, I mean, obviously kind of related to that, but I mean, the amount of money that you're dropping on some of the players, and there's an argument that, we had money left that we could have spent Savinha that we didn't spend today, but maybe that's because we weren't going to get the players in today. Not to say that we couldn't have got them in earlier, but I do think it was a very good window in general, because I don't know, I'm one of the people that Jim was talking about, the 2 people who don't know much about Muani. I mean, I know bits and pieces, but I really defer to, I assume, Stu and Deej. But so I'm looking forward to seeing him because he's going to be a Spurs player now. I think Xavi Simons is probably the player I'm looking forward to seeing the most, and just because the hype is so stratospheric. And it's, didn't really seem to be realistically coming to us, given, the suitors that he had. I'm really hoping that he lives up to that billing. I've already fallen in love with Mohamed Kudus. I think he's absolutely brilliant, and it's the first time I saw him live at the weekend. It wasn't amazing, but some of the times there was definitely Dembele-esque in the way he kind of is using his strength and how he sort of manages to get the ball in tight spaces and keeps it and then comes away with it. I mean, okay, there's areas again it could improve, but that is essentially how I feel. I think it's a really positive window overall, and I think we've got to be happy with the 4 players we've brought in, but they can add to the starting 11. So yeah.
Deej, do you have a general sentiment that we've moved forwards? And also talking of forwards, Muani in particular, it's going to be interesting to see if he was signed for, as a senior player who's going to add depth, or if he's seen as a senior player that would have liked permanently because he's there to be a starter. What do you think? And his profile of play, I understand he played a lot of his time out wide, and Stu will touch on this as well, for Juventus. But his favoured role, a bit like Richarlison's would be, is the centre forward position. What are you expecting from him?
Yeah, I think that we've definitely moved forwards. I think that specifically the signings of Kudus and Simons are signings that I think would move basically any club in world football forward. So those are very, very exciting to me. And then in terms of Muani, I think it'll kind of depend, I think, on Solanke and whether or not we trust him to be healthy long term where he plays. I think that the what you mentioned with his ability to play both on the left and as a number 9, I think that's kind of the reason why we ended up targeting him over a player like Lookman or someone else that we would have gone for in the window that could have played more of a traditional, I guess, left wing role outside of Savino, who I think was pretty obviously our first target, but we were unable to get that deal over the line. And I think the known injury risk to Solanke plus Richarlison means we kind of have to have someone else in that position. And I think that means that signing someone like Muani gives us the flexibility to do multiple things depending on injuries, which is something that we haven't really had in the past. We saw what happened last season when injuries kind of piled up. And now I think we have a bit more about.
Sorry, if you're not watching on video, basically Johnny and Stu's cats seem to be trying to mate each other off each other's video screens. Stu's just kind of lifted its tail and winked at us with its backside. But Stu, Muani, when you saw him play prior to the PSG signing, he was prominently on the left. You weren't completely convinced of him in that role by the sounds of it.
No, I mean, obviously, I don't watch a lot of full Juve games, so I checked in also with a couple of friends of mine who do support Juve to see if my feeling from watching more highlights was in line with their 90-minute views, and they confirmed what I thought is he didn't do much for them. I mean, if you look just at the stats on paper, 8 goals in 16 games, amazing. But they confirmed to me it was more kind of a Brennan Johnson type 8 goals in 16 games than really being effective the rest of the time. And so my only fear was if that's what he's coming to do, we've already got one of those at the club. Kind of like, what are we going to do then? If he's coming to be a centre forward, because, the Solanke, he's going to be back after the international break, according to Frank, isn't true, and it's more kind of an Ange, it's a knock, which means it's 6 months out, then it makes a lot more sense. Then I think, obviously we need the depth at striker. In an ideal world, we'd have upgraded either Solanke or Richarlison anyway. So I think maybe as a centre forward, it makes sense. My only fear is if he's coming to be on the left wing, I'm not really sure what we're doing as a squad build, considering we spent 35 million on Tell to confirm him. We've got Odobert, we've got Mikey Moore, and he's only going to be on loan for this season. He's not with no option, but it's still a case of what are we really doing, and does he really help us with getting the ball, keeping the ball, and adding to the actual general play. And that's my only kind of fear. But, if we're going to put him as a centre forward, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen him playing as a centre forward much, then obviously I bow to the general knowledge of DJ and HG, who claim in that position he's amazing.
It's tough to say. We won't know till he's in the team. But it's one of those where I think if you watched Richarlison playing on the left all the time for Spurs, it would be a different experience of that player than him playing centre forward, and kind of similar with Son playing as centre forward versus on the left wing. But we don't know he's going to be deployed. Deej made a good case, offline. We were chatting about it. Like, we don't really know clearly yet if Simmons is going to be left wing or play behind the striker, because JJ was explaining that in the previous setups Frank's done and where Simmons has played, he seems to be more the profile of playing on the left, still a 10, but starting on the left and drifting in. But as Deej flagged, due to our lack of midfield creativity in the centre, maybe we're going to have to play him in the centre. But it's so many ifs and buts right now. Johnny, you had your hand up, mate.
No, it's just like when Stu was talking there about, the situation in terms of deciding to go for a third striker. I'm just thinking aloud, like, is there a world where we actually employ two strikers in one game? Could Muani work with, probably more realistically, with Solanke, I would imagine?
Yeah.
Like, what is, because that's something that happened a lot back in the day. Just out of interest, from what you guys know about strengths and weaknesses, because there was one video I was watching earlier on today, trying to educate myself on Muani, and it does sound like the skill set that he has sort of complements in different ways Solanke and Richarlison, which might be an interesting sort of combination.
I'd love to see that. I think there's certain games where you're gasping for a goal, and you'd love to see us put another centre forward on to get that goal. But Deej, you had a point to add.
Yeah, and I mean, we kind of, to address that point, we kind of did that against Bournemouth at the end of the game. I don't think we're going to talk about that too much, because the less said about that, the better. But I think so part of it is due to, I think, Bournemouth tiring, because they do run a very aggressive press, and they also kind of decided to sit back a little bit after we brought in more attacking options. But once we brought in Bergvall and put Tell in the middle, I think it opened up a lot more space for us to find joy, if you can call anything we did on Saturday joy, to find joy going forward. So that's definitely something that I can see Frank doing, and I think Kolo Muani is a good option for that. I do also think that even if we bring in Kolo Muani to do more of the Brennan Johnson role, I think, like, if he does end up playing in that way, I do agree that he's not going to be tearing it up in terms of creativity. I don't think, I think he had like, what, 8 goals and 1 assist in 16 games, so that kind of gives you
Is the Brennan Johnson role to win us a league trophy?
Well, the Brennan Johnson role is to score goals from the left.
I know, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I'm joking. I know the stereotype of
no,
doesn't. Yeah, go on.
No,
go
on. I'm saying that positively. I'm saying to be more. Okay, I'll rephrase. To be more of a goal
No,
scorer.
you're allowed to be critical. I'm only messing with you.
I'm not even. The thing is, I'm not even trying to be critical. I'm trying to say a player who is primarily a left winger, but is more of like an inside forward, going to score goals, but isn't going to contribute a lot to build up. I do think that from what I've seen of Kolo Muani, and maybe I just have caught him on good days, but I do think that his ball control is a little bit better, I guess. So that can be seen as an upgrade there. Although I don't think he's as fast as Johnson. So there are trade-offs to both.
Go on, Johnny.
I'm just because I really don't know very much about him. I'm interested in what teachers Stu could explain to me in terms of his attributes, particularly the physicality. Because obviously, I know Serie A, you kind of need to be able to handle yourself physically, but the Premier League is quite a different level of demand. So we have been down so many roads where we've had players come in and they've flourished in different countries, but they've flopped. What do you think of Muani's physical attributes and his ability to adapt to the Premier League?
That's just one up to Stu first.
No, Serie A, it is a lot more whistle happy than the slightest touch and the referee will give it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big ask for any player to come to the Premier League. That was my comment about Xavi Simons as well, that we don't know how he's going to be able to handle the physicality. The only thing I would say is I'm glad he has also played in the Bundesliga, because I think probably the Bundesliga is the closest to the Premier League when it comes to physicality, as opposed to the La Liga or Serie A or Liga. So at least he's got that bit of experience, but it's always going to be a big question mark of how much he can handle that.
Yeah, just looking at the kind of these are overly simplistic, these charts, when you look at the FREF charts, because you're comparing players in different leagues and different squads, often playing in different roles. But it seems to be that Muani's, if you pair him up to Solanke, as an example, is more likely to take a player on and make more dribbles and progressive passes. But there's actually a surprising amount of similarities there in the way they play. They both look like they're physical centre forwards by the looks of it, but that's just going off a chart.
Yeah. I would say that in terms of physicality, I think that I think his main attribute physically is more of his agility rather than his strength. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays. I'm not saying that he's not strong, but I have noticed when he plays center forward, when he comes in to receive the ball, he likes to receive it by creating space between him and the center back rather than muscling up to the center back, much like Richarlison. And there are benefits and drawbacks to both ways. I mean, we saw Richarlison when he went against the a center back at the weekend who was equipped to deal with that well, just kind of got essentially nullified for a decent chunk of the game. So potentially a player like Muani creating space between him and the defender could be something that could have been better. But I don't know. It like Stu said, it's impossible to tell how they will translate from league to league until they actually do. But I do think that he has enough experience in different top level leagues that I think he'll be able to carve something out here. And if not, it's just
Yeah. Well, it's looking like player wise, we've got a side that's capable of a lot better than Bournemouth, but it's going to take time, right? There's as we said on the previous pod, it's a case of you have two main foundational ways that you set up. You have the way you set up when you're the side that's going to be playing from home against a superior side, and that is more about structure off the ball, how you're going to press, how you're going to react. That's a very different training setup. It's very different for the forward players in terms of roles and responsibilities. It's different for the midfield. It's different for everyone. Where Spurs have done really well is in that mode of play, with PSG, Man City away. That's where we've understood that. The bit that we also struggled last season with as well, and it's followed into this season with a bit of a hangover, is the patterns of play going forward. It's when Spurs are told to be the provocateur. That's not a word, Johnny.
Provocateur.
Yeah.
The provocateur. The side that when you manage Tottenham Hotspur and you're playing at home, you've always got to be that. You've always got to be the disruptor, the one controlling possession, the one owning the game. And under, Thomas Frank at Brentford, his side would be able to get away with not being that side all the time, even when you're playing at home. Sometimes it's about the point. It's always about how to maximize the opportunity. There's not that additional pressure to dominate a game and have those expectations to level up to the next point. And that's a whole different ballgame on the training pitch. That's going to take months to instill. It takes some managers seasons to get there. So I don't think we're going to, guys, suddenly see, we got Simmons starting and Muani, we're going to blow everyone away now. There's still going to be those frustrations, but it's easier to coach this into good players than it is bad players. And it's quicker to coach it into good players than it is less good players. And good players don't need to be playing well to win you games all the time because they're capable of getting something out of less. But does this change based on this window now where we are? I think we'd like to see, assuming we bring in one in January, because we typically bring in one or two. Let's just say we bring in that defender in January. I can't see us going to pull Savini off Man City in January, but we bring in the Davies upgrade. Do we just call that role? Where does it leave you guys expectation wise? Are you still feeling, content top six? That's where we should be.
I would say that that's pretty much where my expectations are.
Yeah.
Not only because I do think we have one of the 6 best squads in the Premier League, but I also am aware that just because you have the better squad doesn't mean you're going to win games. As we saw the weekend, I think our squad is better than Bournemouth is at the moment, but that doesn't matter when if they put a ball in the back of the net and we don't. So there's so much variance in terms of every game week in the Premier League. Like Jim always says, most games are decided by one goal. And so it's hard to draw really strong conclusions from those week by week. But I do think that overall, I think we have a good squad and a good manager. And I trust that we'll be able to finish the season somewhere between 4th and 7th. 4th if we get lucky, 7th if we get unlucky. I'd say that's probably where I would expect us to finish.
We're not going to catch City and live. Oh, God. I think, Johnny, do you have your hand up? Or was that old? I pass it to
I was
Stu.
scratching my head, but I'll happily speak.
Oh, no, it's the button. Stu was already going.
Did I press the button as well?
You pushed the button. Come on, Stu.
I would say
that's a hand.
I would say that top 6 is definitely still on. Top 4, I think we're still way off 4th. I think to get 4th, we'll need to be very, very lucky and need one of them to drop off. But I think top 6 is definitely on. Looking at our window, I think especially this pod, we've been going on for ages about needing a 10 and a 6. We've addressed both of those. We can't have a 3rd season in a row of awful injuries, touch wood. So I think we should be all right. And if I look especially at the likes of Newcastle and Villa, they've dropped off substantially year on year.
Mm-hmm.
I think we are looking good. And I just do want to say about the game at the weekend, I don't want to go into the details of it, but I do think that people are underestimating Bournemouth. Bournemouth finished, I think, 7th or 8th last season. They played extremely well against Liverpool the first game of the season.
Yeah, totally.
They're a good side with a very, very good manager. So I don't think, yes, losing at home is awful, But I don't think we should be looking at things, we lost to Bournemouth. Bournemouth are not the recently promoted side that we should be battering. Bournemouth are a very good side with a very good manager.
And for those asking, by the way, just to pick side bit, Alistair Gold has just sent out, Barney would be able to play for Spurs against PSG in the Champions League. That's actually quite an important point to note. Yeah, Johnny, squad-wise, I mean, we know we're not going to catch Liverpool and City in one transfer window. We know that takes years of building. It took Liverpool absolutely years to get there, and it took Man City years of cheating to get there as well. And it took Arteta 4 years, really, until he got the squad to where it is. And I'd say we're probably, if you were looking at that kind of rebuild on a similar level, we're probably in the second or third year of that. We're probably still a year or two away from the bit where you go, whoa, what happened to Spurs? They just clicked into gear. Having the player quality, like Stu said, I think we've got player quality there that's touching base the teams at fourth place. But the team got to learn to play with each other and familiarise with each other. But where do you see us, Johnny?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of concur overall with what Stu and Dee's just said. I mean, in terms of expectations about where we should or certainly could finish, I have a lot of faith in Thomas Frank. I think that we, just as Stu was making caveats about the game of the weekend, and I totally agree with him, point about Bournemouth. 100%. Like, I think that sort of underlines how difficult it is to predict where a team is going to finish, because you look at the table and there's only 3 games, but at the moment, like, you got Newcastle, where we finished last season in 17th, and Aston Villa in 19th. So I mean, City have had a poor start to the season, but after week 1, everyone was like saying, "Oh, City are back," because they steamrolled through Wolves, who look really, really poor compared to last year. So it's a difficult one to tell. I think there's going to be still quite a lot of games when you go along and you sort of still conditioned to think, oh, it's Bournemouth at home. And there's like, maybe when you don't switch on your brain much, you think, oh, well, we just convincingly beat City. So Bournemouth is straightforward 3 points. Well, okay, you never really think that, but I think people are. It's going to be difficult to tell what will happen. I do think that our windows left us better positioned significantly than where we were last year. I think our squad is better. And people talk about Sonny leaving. And obviously, I love Sonny and everything else, but the players who've gone, it wasn't Sonny, like prime Sonny or anything like that. I do think that the players we've brought in, especially Simons, Kudus, and maybe Moani, like by the sounds of things, they can really make a difference and they can be game-changing players. And I do think that Palhinha, from what I've seen, his performances in the first couple of games in the league were really superb. And I do think that like the serious additions, so that allied with Thomas Frank getting used to things, it is going to take him time. But I do think that we are in a much better position than we were in June in terms of the personnel. And I think Thomas Frank's made as good a start as we could have hoped. And I think as a fan base, I'm not really hearing any dissent or any kind of question marks about him. He's really impressing the fan base. And I don't think you should underestimate how important that is, especially when you hear things like Siemens' comments after signing. Yeah. And I remember having a questioning, his bona fides regarding convincing, and Stu put me right. I'm glad to be proven that Thomas Frank is able to convince top quality established players from big clubs that actually there's a project worth considering and indeed committing to at Tottenham. So that's actually quite huge. And whichever journalist said that he might be our best signing of the window, actually, I'd kind of love that to be true in a way, because if the manager's our best signing, then everything else kind of falls into place. So yeah, there's a lot to be very hopeful of as a Spurs fan right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. It's a mix of them all, right? Good, consistent recruitment and a good squad give a manager a platform to succeed. And I think Frank's got a platform to succeed within the expectations of top 6. And he's a good coach who's capable of doing that. But if he doesn't, I don't think we should be, oh, no, he's rubbish, start again. It's such a competitive league. We've got to give this guy 2 or 3 years and just keep layering on similar windows and go, no, we're backing this guy. We're giving him time. He's clearly a good coach, clearly a smart guy. Let's give him the same respect and patience we gave his predecessor to show what he could do. Because I'm still adamant that if you gave most Premier League managers Liverpool's squad, they'd all be in the top 4. I'm not saying they'd all win the league, but they'd all be in the top 4, right? And if you gave any manager in the league Tottenham squad or Bournemouth squad, they're not going to win the league in their first season. look, it's a tough job, and fair play to Slot, actually. He's one of the only managers who's come into a club and just not had an adjustment period. But I guess that is just a small caveat of, it's a world-class team, but he still did brilliantly.
World-class
even though he
manager.
did have a world-class team. Yeah, it's a world-class manager with a world-class team, isn't it? It's the combination of the two. But if you gave him 17 of the 20 teams in the league, he probably wouldn't win the league with them. You have to have the right team to still execute on that.
But the other thing I would say as well is, if you look at not just today, but this entire transfer window, the players that even the likes of Sunderland and Leeds are signing, compared to other top teams in other leagues, it's remarkable. Before, we used to say, okay, there's the top 6 and the rest, and there was a big gulf between the bottom sides and maybe even the middle and the top. Now, really, there's so much strength and depth from 1 to 20. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think we started experiencing this the last 2 seasons. It's like, and it's not just us, it was Villa and Newcastle. Every week, loads of sides would drop points. The days were gone, and we went a few months with only 3 teams winning 2 games on the bounce. It was just nuts, and those were the obvious contenders at the top. Because, like you say, you got Bournemouth with 12,000-seater stadium going up to Porto and going, I'll have your best player for 40 million quid. Like, what on earth? Porto are giants. They're massive. The European club, they're a team you pick on FIFA when you want to try something different. You don't think... It's just so competitive now. To compete and hold on to these players is so tough. Was there anything else top of mind, boys, you want to cover off?
Well,
or should we...
I think that we've talked a lot about the transfers that we have made, and I guess I want to talk a little bit about one of the 2 transfers, I guess, that we haven't made, which is the left wing situation. I think a lot of people wanted to bring in Savinho or Lookman or something. And I guess, from what I understand, I think Lookman was kind of there if we wanted it. It seems like he wants out of Atalanta. It doesn't seem like he's gotten that. But that was not something we could have done at any point if we had decided that was something we were interested in. So I guess someone at the club, whether that be Frank or the scouting team or whoever, probably decided that wasn't something that aligned with our plans. So who am I to tell them that they're wrong? And then for the other options, besides like a deadline day, like Hail Mary for Rafael Leao, which I think is not in the realm of possibility, pretty obviously, I think any of the other options that we would have been able to get would have just left us with the same situation we have right now, where it's like we have good players at the wing, but we don't have anyone who we can say can truly nail down that position. And I think that by buying another player, you just add another player to that queue of, well, maybe one of these 4 will be good. And then you have created a bigger squad registration nightmare for next season. And even this season, to be honest, because we're already going to have to leave a player who will play in the Premier League off of the Champions League squad without the signing of a left winger. So I kind of agree with the squad, with the clubs. What it seems like their idea that it was kind of Savinho or nothing. And we also did get Kolomuani, who can play as a 9 or can cover on the wing. So I'm not too perturbed by leaving that particular option off the table. I think of the players we didn't sign, I'm a little bit annoyed we didn't sign a backup, Ben Davies, but I mean, I guess Ben Davies is technically is still here. So if we need him, we can call on him. I think until January.
Yeah, go on, sorry, Stu.
No, I was going to say for the left wing also, we're going to presume that Decky is back in January, at which point he can play in the middle, and then Simons can play also on the left. So that kind of we got players coming. I'm just with Deej. It's been 2 years now that we've been asking for another fullback because we've only had 3 at the club, and I'm disappointed that the recruitment team didn't have someone lined up already, to be honest, to join us in July, let alone that we weren't able to find someone the entire window.
It's been a tough one to fill, hasn't it? I'm trying to think of another player of that profile who's gone to the Premier League that I look at and go, that's who we needed. I don't think I've ever had that with that
Hato,
role.
Hincapi, could have covered.
Okay, shut up, Stu. Johnny, how are you, mate?
And great. The other thing I'd just like to, vocalize, whether I'm not really sure what my opinion is, but I think when you look at the left wing situation, and remember it's basically about a year since Wilson Odberg pulled on the Spurs jersey for the first time. I can't remember which game it was at the start of last year. The first time we saw him playing at White Hart Lane, it was like he was really getting people off their seats. Then he got injured really, really quickly and spent so much of the season last year on the sidelines. And he still hasn't had an opportunity to get a run of games. And Matisse Tell, like, and I defer every time to Deej when it comes to like knowledge of players that are like all over the gaff, right? And I remember like how excited Deej was in January when we were linked with him, and then it fell through, and then it happened in the end, and it's like, okay, so I mean, I understand why people are questioning, why the option was taken up in the summer and stuff, but I still do have a question about like, well, it's 12 months since we signed the first of those fellas, and it's 6 months or whatever, one window ago since we signed the other guy. Neither of them have really had a chance to get a consistent run. Like, they're both really young players. They both seem to me to be quite promising. They've certainly shown plenty of evidence that they really do have a lot of talent. Jim, the Vincent Kompany's comments about Wilson Odobert as well. Like, he was trying to sort of temper expectations of what Odebert's ceiling. And, obviously when you're just signing a player and you're trying to sort of find out bits and pieces about them, it's thinking, oh wow, like that's really, really high praise. And like, we've got this guy. Like, without, claiming some kind of like amazing level of understanding about like the other targets that are out there. To my mind, there are two guys in the squad now who still have every possibility of ending up actually really successful at our club, and maybe even both of them. And it's just like the nature of like, it's kind of like a kid who, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to other supporters or anything like that, genuinely. But, like, you always kind of like, you get something and then it's like, well, what can I get next? And it's like, you're always kind of looking for something new and shiny. And I just think that people are very quick to dismiss those two guys. True, yeah. It's like, it's kind of depressing. It's like, still hope that they've got an opportunity now, haven't they, to get a lot of game time. And let's hope they can show what they've got.
And we've seen plenty. It's weird because we've seen enough redemption arcs out of nowhere almost in Spurs over the years, with players kind of suddenly accelerating and becoming something we never could have imagined.
Is the obvious one, isn't it?
Yeah, Spence, Kane, Modric. I think Moussa Dembele now on expect. He's a guy from Fulham. Bale. Like, we're not saying Odebert's the next Gareth Bale, but what we're saying is all he has to do is reach, somewhere in between. A superstar versus, or just basically reach a top 6 Premier League player level. And we've got a good player on our hands in the squad for years to come who's might not be the starter long term, but this is a growth opportunity. This is an opportunity for that player to get some minutes and to learn. And you get the benefit. If you go and sign, I would rather have had Savinho right now, don't get me wrong. But the trade-off is other players in your squad don't get minutes and your squad's got a weaker bench, next season. So go on, Deej. You had your hand up.
Yeah, no, I was going to kind of agree with you that I think the consensus is that we would have rather had Savinho, but we couldn't have had Savinho. Like, it doesn't seem like there was an avenue with which we could have signed him. So like I'm kind of in agreement with Johnny that instead I am happy that we will be able to provide opportunities to Odobert and Tell to see like what we have with them. I don't think we've given either of them necessarily the opportunity to prove themselves, I guess, yet. And if we get to the end of the season and we're like, wow, these guys have shown us nothing, they've stagnated, whatever, they don't fit Frank's system, then I mean, it seems like the reporting is we're going to try to go back and first Savinho regardless. So it seems like this isn't the end of that signing or that saga.
Yeah, but City need their replacement, and they're not going to leave themselves short when they're competing for 4 trophies,
especially with Cherky,
because Spurs want them. Yeah, Savinho's injury will be miraculously better now, and he'll be back in the squad.
Exactly.
But like you say, hopefully in January they might find a player who's not getting minutes, who wants minutes, or at the end of the season, and that opens a window of opportunity for us. So let's see. So yes, I think I'd kind of summarise this. There's something that I've noticed, and you guys too, there's a difference between what a complete squad is. And it's almost like when someone says, there's this where a lot of the polarising arguments going on, is it's like someone saying, I'm happy with the window, we got 4 very good players. And someone's going, yes, but we didn't because we still need X and Y. As if the other person doesn't know that. Like, I think everyone, no, just to be clear, we know, someone will say in the comments, we know we definitely do need an upgrade to Ben Davies, but in another fullback and a centre-back, ideally someone who can do both roles. And we do need, ideally, well, I don't say need, let's see how things go, but it does feel like we need another left winger. But that doesn't also mean the window's been a failure. If we've moved the standard to players that improve our first team, not that bolster the squad. Because otherwise you're just going, with already, we should touch on the squad being full. We can't register any more senior players for the squad in the Champions League. We're already at capacity, already leaving players out, like Dragosin.
we're over.
We're already way over.
including
So if you want to
injuries.
bring in another left winger who's better than Odegaard but not as good as Savinho, you've got to unregister Odegaard for a very marginal gain,
So you already might have.
and then neglect his development. You already are not registering it.
Well,
Anyway, so
him
what
or
we're saying
Tell.
is him or Tell. You're already in that territory. So if you start signing players who aren't big needle movers who make it worth that sacrifice, you're just leaving yourself in a bizarre position where you've got a massive squad and you can't even use them.
We aren't
You're going to make
sales.
Yeah, but we've actually done. I would acknowledge in a minute, we've done a brilliant job of offloading players lately compared to the past. What's left is basically Brian Hill's gone, Solomon's gone.
Piss.
It's just Biss.
It's just
Like when you look back 18 months ago, you could have listed, 2 years ago, you could have listed 10 players. We're down to 1, right? That was a result and a consequence of 5 or 6 terrible transfer windows. We got it awfully wrong and stuffed the squad with the type of players I feel people are asking for just to get the numbers in. To get the best players, other people want them. That's a good sign. It's like when someone else looks at your partner. Don't take it as an insult. It's good. It's a terrible analogy. But when you go for the top players, everyone's looking at them because everyone wants them. So you're in big competition. They cost a lot of money and the team with them doesn't want to let them go. If it's the reverse, no one else wants them, desperate to get rid, and no one else is looking at them. If that's the player we're after just to get it in last minute, you're probably going to be in the same situation trying to get rid of them in 2 years. So I just, boys.
gonna end with a transfer rating out of 10.
Oh, why not? Why not? And then we can clip this up, come back, and actually in the comments, let us know what your transfer window rating is, and we can hold all of each other's accountable. And also pop into our Discord. I posted top here. It's growing like crazy. We went from like 200 to 400 members today or something, and even got a message saying like, "This is spam, surely." No, it's not. It's just Spurs fans who are tired of being in communities on other platforms, not a fellow YouTube shows. I'm talking about like just being on Twitter and stuff, where everyone just wants to pile on the club and they want a nice little safe haven to discuss Spurs. So we made it. And I also made some bots in there. I'm so proud of myself doing this because I'm not a techie, where you get all the latest news from Ornstein, Gold, and other verified journalists that go straight in there. So you don't even have to trawl through X anymore to go get your news. And I only put the real people in there, no fake aggregators. It's like it used to be. Imagine teletext in the modern era. That's what you got. Transfer window ratings. Johnny.
Say 7.8.
Spot the teacher. Teach. It's got the decimal point, mate.
I was gonna throw the decimal point in there too. I'm gonna say somewhere around like a 7.5. I'll keep it sort of roundish. 0.5s are basically whole numbers in rating systems anyway. So yeah, I think I'm very excited for all of the players we brought in. With even Polina, who I've expressed that I don't think he's like obviously a long-term answer. He's alone, so that's not necessarily a huge issue, and he is very, very good when we need to be super defensively solid. So even him, I'm happy with the decision to bring in for games like the City game. And obviously I've talked about how much I love Kudus. Simons is a very exciting talent, and I think Kolomuani is someone who I'm not entire. It'll be interesting to see where he fits in this squad. I think not in like I don't know if we have a place for him, but I think we could use him in several different ways. And players like that are always ones that I think are really interesting to me. So hopefully he finds a place and sticks to it.
So we'll round you up to an 8 then, Deej. We're rounding you up to an 8.
I'll go to 7.
You can't give all that justification and give it a 7.5.
I was going to say the reason I don't think it's the reason I do think we like Stu said, I think we left ourselves short at fullback / center back, and I think that maybe I'll give it a 7.7.
Cool. Stu, what about you?
Yes, I was going for the decimal point as well. I'm giving it a 7.4 because I don't want to give it a 7.5 because then it can get rounded up to an 8 because it's not an 8. It is a 7.4.
I'm going to give it an 8 because Stu said it's not an 8 and we like to disagree on stuff. So there you go. It's an 8. And a left centre-back, wing-back hybrid, it would have been a 10 out of 10 window for me. That doesn't mean that we've suddenly... Well, I guess 10 out of 10 is you built the world's best squad in a single window, isn't it?
No holes left.
Yeah. Well, no, again, a complete squad versus a great window are just different things in my mind. Like,
exactly.
I don't know when did this all... Like, it's this season it started. It was like...
closes all holes in your squad, by definition.
I think that...
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's not a 10.
Yeah.
On paper.
But it also gets harder to move up as you go up the scale, right?
That's true.
So, like, once you hit 8, to get to 10, you've got to do
Yeah,
tons
exactly,
more. Like
exactly.
getting the left centre back and left wing back just gets you to a 9.
Yeah.
And then
You're like,
something that
ah,
gets you to 10.
I mean,
10,
10's
yeah,
impossible.
yeah.
Like even Liverpool now didn't get their 10 out of 10 because Mark Gay's
Yeah, he fell
collapsed.
through.
Anyway, guys, up the Spurs.
Go
Come
on,
on,
Spurs.
Spurs.